Wrestling Podcast, here doing another Rassler Review. So far we've done Lex Luger, and we've done, was it Lance Storm?
Lance Storm.
Lance Storm.
The Boogeyman. Jimmy the King. Jimmy King.
Some of those we just haven't done recording reviews of yet. But for this one, we're going to jump the gun here a bit. So we're going to do this one on the Revolting Blob. A true hero to the sport. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
I would say he needs a 30 for 30 on ESPN.
He definitely does. It'd be just as entertaining as Ric Flair's.
Vice needs to come in and do a Dark Side of the Ring on the Revolting Blob.
The Revolting Blob. So, Maximilian Anderson was born in Chihuahua, Mexico. As we all know him today as the Revolting Blob. He began his wrestling career at the age of 7. And this led to him becoming a bodybuilder at the age of 10. These are both very young ages.
Yeah, he started young. There's not a whole lot to do in Chihuahua, Mexico. And, starting wrestling, he worked his way into bodybuilding through wrestling. He got with countless wrestlers, and they advised him to do some light steroids, and that's when he really started picking up the gym heavy.
Yeah, he eventually was able to achieve 3% body fat by the age of 21.
Yeah, and by that time he had a full beard. And, he was 10, started taking steroids. When he was 21, he was pretty jacked. It was pretty gross. He started getting attention from a lot of, AAA down there was looking at him pretty hard.
His back was just covered in acne.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. If you look at the pictures, the still photos, you'll tell he was very warrior-esque in his physique at a early age.
However, he did have a food problem. He had a big eating problem, which it didn't come out yet at the age of 21. But by the age of 26, we could tell he was starting to balloon. Yeah,
and that comes from working out so much. He had an appetite to begin with prior to it, but all these matches and this physical activity, it just started a snowball effect that he just couldn't control. He was exercising a lot, but he was eating even more.
And of course, we know of his favorite food, the peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwich, a foreign delicacy.
Yeah, and he just went to town on those. He would be known that he would go in and shut down the restaurant. He would just eat all of them, everything. That's all he'd order. And he would be there all night, too. It was just incredible how much that man could eat in one sitting.
Yeah, it was not a pretty sight. You could tell this was leading to a dark path, because eventually this led to his addiction to sniffing glue.
Yeah, his favorite. And he would just line up on the table like lines of Coke, and he would just make small lines. That's how it started.
But this was construction glue.
It was Elmer's to start. Like the small bottles you would get at an elementary school.
Then he moved to the hard stuff.
And he wouldn't just do one fat line. It'd be multiple fat lines. And then he started doing construction glue, like model glue, and that's what was getting him. He was hitting it up before matches, and guys were getting hurt in the early years when we started his huffing addiction of small children's sniffing glue. That's what he got addicted to, and it became a dangerous path, especially working in that industry. You're going in intoxicated off glue.
Well, and not only that, but he was trying to hide his homosexual tendencies. At that time.
That's really hard to do when you're addicted to glue and you're addicted to dudes. White substances are really hard to come by, or not that hard to come by in Mexico.
And he also refused rehab, so that did not work in his favor either.
There's been multiple stories about parties that he's went to where guys have walked in and had no idea the ghost ectoplasm that was sprayed all over, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. They knew he had a problem. Some of his friends tried to get him together, but he swore up and down one evening, and I think it was November 17th, they were all at a party, and he had too much to sniff, and he was calling himself Senor Elmer, and that's when they knew they had to try to get him into rehab.
But the story isn't all doom and gloom, as he did end up winning multiple titles across his career in Mexico, and even advertised his own brand of sneakers.
Yeah.
Which was a big deal in his mainland. Eventually, he would move to America and began sumo wrestling under his alias Big Chunk.
Well, when he became Big Chunk, he had to do something different because in the wrestling industry, it slowly slipped away from him because his shoe deal went away because all the glue was missing. And what had ended up happening was the trucks that would come in with the glue that kept the heels and soles on the shoes were missing, and the product wasn't able to be made. And then that's when he decided he had to change career paths, and he decided sumo wrestling was his new venue that he'd take on. He didn't have to put himself.
I would just like to point out, it's very interesting that he moved to America to start sumo rather than Japan, because he would later end up moving to Japan to hone his pro wrestling craft.
Well, yeah, I mean, he had a really good ability, at the size, because he was constantly eating still. The sniffing glue really aided into his appetite, and he gained a massive amount of weight, but he was still athletic enough to take on the American sumo wrestlers and dominate.
However, this wouldn't last, as eventually he would start losing matches, and this would end up in him retiring as a sumo wrestler and try acting as an extra in crime dramas, which is very fascinating.
Yeah.
Especially as a big man.
Yeah, and that was the thing, is his rise to stardom in sumo wrestling was almost as quick as his fall. I mean, it was drastically quick, but the thing about it is he used his promos from wrestling, and he used his style that he had from pro wrestling into sumo, and that's what brought people to see his sumo matches, was the outlandish, over-the-top character that he was. And then when he realized that his eating habits became too much, that he couldn't, use his athleticism to win matches anymore, he decided that he's going to take on the role of actor.
I don't think the glue helped that either.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to Hollywood. I mean, that's only going to lead to all kinds of parties.
Yeah, lots of glue parties in Hollywood. So, this stint in acting wouldn't pan out either, and the Revolting Blob was officially born at this time, as his weight would balloon to 425 to this point, and it would just keep climbing. This was truly the beginning of this was a continuation of a legend here, as we would see. Had a successful run in America, recording many title wins and several Match of the Year candidates. This guy could go.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it had to do with the dangerous cocktail that he was ingesting, which was airplane glue, and he still was doing steroids at this time, believe it or not.
Somehow.
Yeah, I mean, his body was just ready to go. He was moving it. Pick up the reins and go right into pro wrestling is exactly what he did. Bookers and promoters couldn't beat his resume. The man was a legend in Mexico. He was a sumo. He had stardom from his sumo era in the sumo leagues. And then when he had short stints. He was a backup guy for a lot of NCIS TV shows. If you look at the early days, he's going to be in the background.
You just look for the very large background character.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think he was in a few, TV shows only aired on Mexican TV. I think he had a little bit better stardom there. And I'm almost positive he was in an episode of Ray Romano.
I believe it was Everybody Loves Raymond, yes.
Yeah, that was it. That was his big spot he had. I think he was in The Delivery Man.
That was his one big spot right there.
Yeah.
However, despite not having a lot of big spots outside of the ring, he had a lot of them in the ring, which that's something to keep in mind. Despite his failures outside of the ring, we can't look past how great of a legend he was inside the ring.
I think Dave Meltzer put it best when he said that he was the flying fat tomato.
Can't argue with that, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone can top the number of 4-star matches that Dave Meltzer gave the Revolting Blob.
Yeah, he was the 4-star king. Eventually, he flipped and started working in Japan, where he would end up perfecting his craft. This is where the Revolting Blob goes from just a superstar and a Hall of Famer to just an absolute legend. You know, among the ranks of guys like Inoki and guys like Austin, guys like, you know, Jinder Mahal, you know, people like all of these, you know, fantastic wrestlers. And after coming back to the States, his food and paint sniffing addiction did get worse, which is very sad to hear. We're unsure if he eventually kicked the bucket. In fact, his whereabouts are still unknown, but let's talk about the big thing that his career is known for, unfortunately, and that was the death of Juan Dirty Sanchez.
Yeah, you know, the story that came out behind Juan, what happened was what led up to that is Juan wanted to do a spot, and Revolting Blob, he wasn't a big fan of the spot. He was a little bit of a stiff worker, I guess you'd say.
He was a bit snug in the ring, yeah.
Yeah, along the lines of like a Vader type wrestler. And what ended up happening is Juan wanted to do a drop kick in the corner, and Revolting Blob wanted to move and then land on him, hit him with like a Vader splash. But Juan repeatedly told him, "You're gonna land your stomach on me, right?" And Revolting Blob said, "Yeah." "You're gonna land on me. You're gonna give me a splash, right?" Revolting Blob said, "Yeah." Well, what ended up happening was Revolting Blob was in that match and did not do a splash. He did a Yokozuna style sit on your chest from the middle rope.
And I believe they planned it out that he was supposed to pinch his leg if he was coming short of air, because he was going to land and he was going to stay on him and crush him, kind of like a submission.
The original spot showed that Juan was face down, and then the splash, he was supposed to pinch him when he couldn't breathe. He was just going to lay there, not for pinfall count, but, and what ended up happening was the pressure, he wasn't able to get a hold and pinch him, and unfortunately we had a dirty Sanchez sprawled out in the ring. It was a mess. It was a messy, dirty Sanchez.
Just toll the bell 10 times for poor Juan. So, that was the last time we'd seen the Revolting Blob in the wrestling ring, and in the media as well, because there haven't been any stories about him since this incident, and his whereabouts are still mostly unknown at this point. I mean, there is a rumor, and I can't confirm this, that he's currently an elementary school principal at Polyfector Elementary, but we haven't seen his face in the media since, so we can't quite confirm that.
Yeah, after that horrible Dirty Sanchez incident, he disappeared off the map. It's weird. It's almost like he got wiped clean.
So basically, the moral of the story is, no matter how high a person flies, there might be stuff behind the scenes that could be holding them back. There could be some demons that we don't know about. And that is the story of one of the best wrestlers to ever lace up a pair of boots, the Revolting Blob.